Hello, everybody. Happy Wednesday, or whenever you may be watching this. We are going to be talking about Marbury versus Madison today, which was one of the earliest and most important Supreme Court cases in our country's history. And while I'm just talking about this briefly, everybody, please have your textbook open to page 269. You'll see the section heading will read Marbury versus Madison. We are going to start reading there today. So, anyways, I'm going to head over to my slide. Keep in mind, we didn't really talk about it a whole lot, but the Supreme Court at our country's starting didn't really have a lot of power. The Constitution is kind of vague on what the Supreme Court was actually supposed to do. So, this case pretty much established what power the Supreme Court has and why it's still an important, or I shouldn't even say still, why it is a very important branch of our government. So, I'm just going to start reading from the top, everybody, on 269. So, although Republicans controlled the presidency and Congress, Federalists dominated the federal judiciary. In an effort to continue their control over the judiciary, Federalist legislators passed the Judiciary Act of 1801 shortly before their terms of office ended. This act created 16 new federal judgeships that President Adams filled with Federalists before leaving office. The Republican press called these people midnight judges, arguing that Adams had packed the judiciary with Federalists the night before he left office. So the way it still works, everybody, is the president gets to appoint federal judges, meaning that hopefully none of you need to use this someday, but whenever you have court, everybody, you start at a kind of local state level court, and if it gets serious enough, you can go to a federal court, and federal judges are appointed by the president. So John Adams had appointed quite a few judges, and the Federalist Party was hoping to kind of keep control of the judicial system by creating new federal judges. And so, on his last day as president, John Adams appointed 16 more, which, if you were a Democratic Republican, you probably wouldn't have been very happy with that because it's two different viewpoints. Keep in mind with these two political parties. So, going back to the reading, some of these appointments were made so late that the documents that authorized them had not yet been delivered by the time Adams left office. This led to controversy once Jefferson took office. William Marbury, named as a justice of the peace by President Adams, did not receive his documents before Adams left office. When Jefferson took office, Marbury demanded the documents. On Jefferson's advice, however, the new Secretary of State, James Madison, refused to deliver them. Jefferson argued that the appointment of the midnight judges was not valid. So what happened, everybody, is you had one of these judges that Adams appointed. He wanted to be a judge, but Jefferson and his Secretary of State, James Madison, refused to deliver these documents that prevented him from being a judge. Or, excuse me, that would allow him to be a judge. So, and I'm going to the Supreme Court. I'm flipping to the next page, 270 at the top. Marbury brought suit asking the Supreme Court to order Madison to deliver the appointment papers. Marbury claimed that the Judiciary Act of 1789 gave the Supreme Court the power to do so. John Marshall, a Federalist appointed by John Adams, was the Chief Justice of the United States. Chief Justice Marshall and President Jefferson disagreed about how many political issues. When Marshall agreed to hear Marbury's case, Jefferson protested, saying that the Federalists have, quote, retired into the judiciary as a stronghold. Marshall wrote the court's opinion. So the Supreme Court justice, everybody, one of their jobs is usually one of them will write the court's opinion, the decision they come to. And in the opinion, Marbury versus Madison, a case that helped establish the Supreme Court's power to check the power of the other branches of the government. The Constitution, Chief Justice noted, gave the Supreme Court authority to hear only certain types of cases. A request like Marbury's was not one of them. The law that Marbury's case depended upon was therefore unconstitutional, meaning that it violates the Constitution or it just doesn't exist. In denying Marbury's request in this way, the court avoided a direct confrontation with Jefferson's administration, but more important, it established the court's power of judicial review, the power to declare an act of Congress unconstitutional. Marshall and later federal judges would use this power of judicial review to make the judiciary a much stronger part of the national government. So those last few sentences, everybody, is really important because that power of judicial review gave the Supreme Court a lot more power, which you can argue is a good or bad thing. But it gave them power, like it said there in bold and highlight, to declare an act of Congress unconstitutional. And your Google Classroom question asks you, why do you think that the Supreme Court case was so important? And why do you think that power of judicial review is so important throughout our country's history, both back then, 100 years ago, and present times? Why do you think that power is so important? So please answer that one Google Classroom question, and then you are all done for today. Thank you, and have a great rest of your day.